Good morning, guys. It's, I believe June 2nd is the day it is, right? Yeah, it's June 2nd, second day of June already. This is going to be your asynchronous math class for June 2nd. I hope you guys had fun in your very first live anatomy lab. Um, Complete this when you get a chance, obviously. There'll be an attendance assignment posted in the form for you to complete. Other than that, I really hope that you're starting to get into the swing of things here with being in your couple, like I think what third week now of classes. So I really hope you're truly getting in the swing of things. Welcome to my humble abode away from home. I'm actually in Virginia currently, recording from middle of nowhere, Virginia, because I'm here for family. So if it looks different, yeah, it's definitely different. The internet's definitely different here too. Oh boy, is the internet different here. But anyway, so with that, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and we're going to actually talk about percentages today. And there is a percentage chance that some of you may hate this lecture. That's okay. Like I said, we're probably about 20% ahead. I'm okay with that because that gives me a little bit more to build into review and stuff like that before the midterm. So what do we use percentages for? We'll use percentages when we're talking about grades, loans, just about anything percentages off on stores, grade point averages, weighting grades, student loans, loans in general, pretty much anything, right? There's a percentage that goes along with it. Percentages are another part of the whole relationship, much like decimals and fractions, right? So if you have 10% of something, that means you literally only have one out of every 10 parts of it. It looks at how much of 100% of something you have, or if you have greater than 100%, how did you accomplish that, right? It's represented by that percent symbol, which is those two little silly zeros with a slash through them. Can be written in fraction format. 35% is equal to 35 over 100, which is also equal to 0.35. So when you need to convert a percentage to a fraction, you simply take the number and write it over 100. Right? So that makes that fairly simple. And even converting it to a decimal is actually even simpler, because for a decimal, all you need to do is come in here and move that decimal point 2 places, and you've got the decimal, and just get rid of that percent symbol. Even if you have something silly like 435%, it's really easy to convert that to a decimal. Drop the percent sign, move that decimal 2 points, and it becomes 4.35. That means you have 4 of something and 35 out of 100% or parts of the other part. So that's kind of the way it works for converting decimals, fractions to decimals, which becomes really important when we start talking about loans, especially. Where can they show up? They can show up on medication labels, medication containers, strengths and solutions of medications. Really big on interest in student loans and taxes, right? Discounts and markups in pharmacies and stores. To convert a percentage to a decimal, like I said, shift the decimal point 2 places to the left. So if I got 35%, it's 0.35. If it's 23 and 2/3%, it would be 23 and 0.23 and 2/3, which we will never do, or 0.233 or 236666666, and so on. 97% is 0.97, 95 is 0.95. You can use this proportionally to solve word problems, like what percentage is equal to how many parts of a whole. So here we have percentage over 100, meaning that 100 would be full, is X out of whatever. Why is that important? Well, that would be important for a test, right? So in this case, if you get 35 out of 92 questions on a test, what percentage did you get? So you could set this formula up right here and say, again, we haven't gotten into variables and stuff like that yet, but what we're saying is, what percentage is 35 right out of 92? Now I'm looking at this going, well, that's less than 50%. That's kind of the way I look at it. And I'm going to go find the answer that's less than 50%. But to solve it really simply, you're going to actually look at that, divide both sides by, or divide 35 into 92, right? Or 92 into 35, and then multiply by 100. That'll give you your percent. So it's about 38%. The other thing you can just do is simply do 92 into 35. And the answer you'll get out here is 3804. And as long as you move that decimal point, right, 1, 2 over, that'll give you your 38.4% as 04% as well. So there are a couple different ways. Again, I'm not looking for what way you use to get to the solution. I don't care about the road to the solution. I care about do you get to your location. So that's there. There's the next part. I didn't realize that. I guess I should have read ahead, Mr. McKeever, but that's just solving what it was. Why is this important? Well, let's take the last boards, for example. So on your national boards, which everyone cares about, you're going to have 150 questions. That's the graded portion. So 150 questions on the NPTAE. So the NPTAE is your national exam. You have about 150 questions. Oh, actually, you have exactly 150 questions. We'll talk about how it's graded, but you need to get about a 600 is the weighted score on it. And the score goes from 400 to 800. But on the last NPTAE, 96 out of 150 was the score you needed in order to get a 600. So I always look at students and go, well, let's look at that real quick. So 96 out of 150, if you divide 96 into 150, right? So 96 divided by 150, you get 0.64. If we move that decimal point 2 points to the right, that means you need a 64% on the last exam in order to pass the exam. You guys can do that. I mean, that's literally getting 2 out of every 3 questions right, basically. Gives you fair room for error. When you think about that, 96, it means you can miss 54. You guys can easily do that if you pay attention and are, paying attention in class and you practice study. So this is not a hopeless affair. Most people can get a 64 as long as you apply yourself to it, right? There was a famous song that once said, you can do it, just put your back into it. You can do that. See, I have no problem that you can do it. So here's basically the talk when I was saying is, you need approximately 67%. If you average it over the past 5 years, it works out to 67% or about 66.6%. So if you average that out, you go, 67% times 150, right? Gives you the amount that you'll need to get the question correct. So 150 times 0.67 is about 100.5 out of 150. So about 101 out of 150 would get you there. You can do that as well. Again, 2 out of every 3 questions. This is not rocket science. You can do that. Percentage of change, either increase or decrease. For example, changes in medicine dose, changes in weight, income, 401k, exactly. Typical formula is the amount of change divided by the original number equals the fraction of change. Remember, change is to be expected in our lives, except from vending machines. They always keep your change. I know, my humor is just so much dad humor, right? So you go to see your doctor and you weigh 150 pounds. Your doc and you discuss your weight and find out your ideal weight would be 120 pounds, meaning you need to lose 30 pounds. Upon changing your habits and improving exercise, you lose 30 pounds. What is the percentage of change of your body? So here we go. We'll change in weight, 30 pounds over original weight, 150, equals what percent over 100? So as we get that down, we'll go, okay, well, 30 times 100 is 3,000 divided by 150. You lost about 20% of your original weight. That's pretty good. And honestly, in most cases, so in the case of a patient that's going to get a total knee replacement, I'll just talk about one that I remember real recently. He came in to get a total knee replacement and he weighed 375 pounds. Right? And the doctor said, I won't do a knee replacement at that weight. What I want you to do is I want you to show me that you legitimately want this knee replacement. So I want you to lose 10% of your weight. So the doc says 10% flippantly. I want you to lose 10% of your weight. Because the patient hears 10% and like, oh, well, 10%, that's like 10 pounds. That's not much. But in reality, in order to get the amount that you need to lose, you take that 375, you convert the percentage to a decimal, so times 0.10, and that gives us the patient needs to lose 37.5 pounds, right? So they have to lose 37.5 pounds. Their new goal weight is somewhere around 337.5. You tell a patient that and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. He just said I had to lose 10%. Yeah, well, that's what 10% is. They just don't realize it because all they hear is 10 and think it's 10 pounds. So they do have to understand a little bit about that, right? When they're doing stuff like that. But most docs, even if you are fairly healthy within a healthy spec, will say that they want some commitment out of you and want a 10% weight loss drop before surgery. Now, does that mean they're not going to do surgery on if you schedule it and say you're scheduling for June 2nd for your total knee replacement? It's now in January, and you get to June 2nd and you actually only have lost 8% of your body weight. More than likely not. More than likely the doc's still going to do surgery because, well, that's money, right? But I mean, there's a chance they can't. There's chances I've seen doctors who will refuse it if they don't get their weight loss goal that they wanted. So just be aware of that. That helps the patient understand what they need to lose, right? I mean, ideally, all of us could probably lose to use. Yeah, use to lose. There we go. Lose to use. Use to lose about 10 to 15 at least percent of our body weight. I know my goal right now is about, what is my goal? So my goal would be, about 30% of my body weight, I think is what I'm going for right now. So, you know, it's possible. You just have to figure out, no, it's not 30%. It's about 20%. I was gonna say 30% seems awful high. You know, my goal is to get down to around 200 pounds by October. So, you know, all of us can set goals as long as you are understanding what those goals mean in the long run. Percentages help us understand that. So here a patient doctor says they're morbidly obese and must lose 30% of their body weight before they'll do a total knee replacement. Here's another patient example, almost like I just talked about. Patient currently weighs 457 pounds. How much weight must the patient lose? So here we have to take our 457 pounds. We're going to convert that 30% to a decimal. So we're going to convert it to 0.3, right? We'll multiply by it. Patient needs to lose 137 pounds. Now, the ideal goal for this doc to do is not just tell them that, but say, okay, so you're right now it's January 1. You have until July 1. So you have 6 months. And so we have 137 pounds for 6 months. You've got to lose. So you divide that by 6. You got to lose 23 pounds a month. Now that seems like a lot, right? Because I know that there's all kinds of, like, you shouldn't lose more than X pounds per week, or you shouldn't lose more than X pounds per month. But you also have to understand, if somebody's 457 pounds, not all of it is true body weight. A lot of it is water that's in that adipose tissue. This is why, you know, when you first lose weight, you lose a lot of weight right off the bat, right? When you're starting to do a cut or you're starting to lose a little bit of weight, I mean, stuff goes away quickly because you lose some of that water content in that adipose. It takes a little bit longer to shrink that adipose. The sad part about adipose is no matter what we do, even by shrinking it, it's still there. What does that mean? That means if we don't stay on a healthy diet, that adipose can come back, and sometimes come back with a vengeance. All grades are typically eventually converted into percentages and then given a letter association and a grade point association, right? So in PIMA's grading schema, 93 to 100% is an A, 85 to 92 is a B, 77 to 84 is a C, and less than 77% is an F. So that means PIMA does not have a D grade and there's no 1.0 grade. Now, when I say less than 77%, we do curve here, right? So that means technically it's less than 76.5%. So I don't want you to push the envelope, but understand you have a little bit of leeway there. So don't get that low. Grade point average is often looked at in order to transfer into other schools. Most graduate schools that are competitive will not even look at you unless your GPA is about 3.33. And that's, you know, does that mean that something like University of Phoenix might look at you? No, they'll probably look at you because, again, typically Millen, they're in it more for the money. But if you're going to something like a DPT program or a PA program or something like that, 3.33 is the minimum they're looking for. And you're usually competing with students that are pretty close to a 4.0 average. So how does that play into grade weighting? Most schools use a weight-based grade system instead of a flat grading system to provide a more emphasis on testing or possibly lab skills. In PIMA here, right, we have major categories. We have PPS, we have outside assignments, which is your homework. We have lab skills, not in every class, like math does not have lab skills. Math and physics does not have a lab skills portion. We have finals or tests and quizzes, and we have finals. All of these would add up to be 100%. If we were doing just a flat kind of grading system, right? So meaning that everything is equal, if we had all 5 of these categories, all 5 would be worth 20%. Why is that? Well, if you add all 5 of those categories up, 20, 20, 20, 20, it will add up to 100%. But that's not how a lot of us do it. And again, like me, I put more emphasis on testing because that's what's going to be important for you for passing your boards. So let's create a class that we'll call PTA 103 or 013, Unlucky Physical Therapy. The class has a full complement of categories. The instructor's weighted the class as such. PPS 10%, outside assignments 20%, lab skills 40%, test and quizzes 15, final 15. So this class here, it's important to know what's the heaviest portion. So if you're looking at a syllabus, you need to look at that syllabus and go, what does the instructor consider to be the most important part of this class? Well, looking at this, Bob, the instructor of the Unlucky Physical Therapy class, obviously considers lab skills the most important, which I would agree with Bob here. Lab skills are really important because that's what you're going to do in the clinic. I also think that tests and quizzes are pretty important too. I wouldn't have rated outside assignments so high, but whatever. Bob weighted them this way, and that's Bob's prerogative. It's Bob's prerogative. Anyway, why is that? Well, it's important to know this because that means you need to focus a lot of your time and energy on making sure all of your lab assignments, all of your lab stuff is done and up to snuff. Because if you think about it, that lab skills is a mini class in and of its own. If you 40% of your grades, that means if everything is weighted for 100 points, 40 points out of that 100 is your lab skills, right? If you only get a 50% here, so you get 20 out of 100, the best you'll ever do in that class is an 80%. 20 minus, you're short 20 points here, 20 minus 100, 80%, right? So you have to kind of think of that when you're looking at classes. A lot of classes, final will be weighted the heaviest, usually 20 to 25%. Don't sleep on your final. It can crush you, especially if you don't prep for it. So here we have grades again right now. Let's say that this is how the class breaks down. PPS is 100 points based on PPS form. Outside assignments is 100 points, 10 assignments for 10 points each. Lab skills is 400, 8 labs, 50 points each. Tests and quizzes, 200 points, 2 tests for 100 points each. And the final exam is a 100-point exam. If you look at this, you can see that PPS, outside assignments, and finals all have the same number of points, right? But even though they have the same number of points, they're all going to be weighted slightly different because, again, PPS is only 10% of your grade. Outside assignments is 20, and finals are 15. So even though that final is 100 points is equal to the PPS points, it's weighted heavier on the back end, meaning it will affect your grade more on the back end. So now let's look at your grades. In PPS, you get all of your PPS. So you get 100 out of 100 PPS points. In outside assignments, yeah, you do pretty well. You get about 80 points out of your 100 points total. Lab skills, again, not bad. You get about, was that about 75%? So 350 out of 4, or actually it's about 80%, 350 out of 400. Tests and quizzes, 175 out of 200, 95 points out of 100 on your final. If you look at it, you looked like you did fairly well for the semester. If this grade had been calculated based on a flat grading system, meaning everything's equal, we just add all the points that you got, add all the points that you earned, divide them, your class grade would have been about 88% or a B, 3.0. But because of the weighting, right, we're actually going to take and now do the weighting for it. So PPS, 100 out of 100, that means we get 10 total points for the class. 80 out of 100 nets you 16 total points for the class in outside assignments. 35 out of 400 is going to net you about 35 total points out of that 40 points that you would normally have. Tests and quizzes, 13.5, 14.5. We add all that together because of the weighting of the class and because the lab was worth so much and you actually did so well in that lab portion, instead of getting 88 in the flat class, you actually get a 92.75, which rounds up to a 93, which means you get an A, all because you paid attention and focused the labs. So this is a positive result. And although it could turn out much more negative if you slacked on lab skills, in this case, you understood what your heaviest weighted category is and you hit that hard, right? If you have a class that's heavy in homework, you need to hit that hard and make sure you do all of your homework. Otherwise, you'll end up failing the class. So let's talk about shopping, because everyone wants to go shopping, right? Percentages can be used to calculate price increases or sales. So let's say you're buying a stethoscope from a high-end company and the stethoscope is on sale for 40% off. The original price is $440. And don't sleep on this. My stethoscope that I have was about $400. And again, it's on sale for 40% off. How much is your final price? Well, there's a couple ways you can do this. So first of all, you can take 440, convert the 40% to decimals, and that would be 0.4. That'll give you that you saved about 100. You're going to save $176. Then you're going to subtract the 176 from the 440, get 264. Alternatively, if you know that you're saving 40%, that means you're going to only pay 60% of the original price, because 100 minus 40%, 60%. You can also then just choose to multiply your price times that 0.6, 60% converted to a decimal, and that will give you the same answer. Again, two different roads to a solution. They both end up in the same place. They both end up walking like an Egyptian, right? No, just kidding. So they both end up at 264. Interest on loans, home loans, car loans, personal loans, student loans can cause havoc in your life, especially credit cards, right? All these loan percentages are going to be based arbitrarily on your credit rating. And there are so many things that can both positively and negatively affect your credit rating. I put a link here to Last Week Tonight. For those of you that haven't seen the series, I'm sorry, I don't know how you've missed it, but I watch it pretty heavily. It's John Oliver originally from The Daily Show that does his own show on HBO. And he does a lot of good reporting on stuff like this. He did reporting on medical waste and stuff like that as well. This is on credit reports. And it really opens your eyes as to how arbitrary your credit report number is. It's not, all of us think that all I have to do is pay my bills get everything paid on time, and I'll have no problem whatsoever. Not that easy, actually, folks, believe it or not. It can be affected by weird things. It can be affected by medical bills. It can be affected by, if your landlord actually reports to your credit bureau or not, or if they don't, right? Lenders, meaning people that loan money, tend to take advantage of people who do not understand how both your credit report and loan percentages work. Typically, the longer the loan you take up, the higher the percentage you may be. So in the case of buying a car, there may be companies that'll offer you, say you really want that really fancy Mercedes-Benz ML series. And you're like, I can't afford this. And the finance guy goes, hey, I got you. Tell you what we'll do. We'll finance it for 104 months. And because we're going to finance for 104 months, look at this beautiful price. And you look at the price, like, I can afford that, right? But then you're like, you don't think 104 months, good Lord, if I take 104 divided by 12, that's almost 8 2/3 years. What? I didn't think about that. You're going to be financing that car for 8 years. Most people in the United States change their car over every 2 to 3 years, right? But what also comes along with that longer loan is typically a higher interest rate. You may pay in the factors of 10% more because you're taking a higher or longer length loan out. The worse your credit, the higher percentage you'll pay because you're considered high risk for default, non-payment. And we could talk about that for hours because you can end up in that high risk category and stuck there forever, even though, like some doctors, they make hundreds of thousands of dollars and are stuck in that high risk category because one time in school, they had some bad stuff happen to them and now they're stuck in that high risk category. So is it better to take a loan out for 6 years for 3% or 3 years for 9%? Well, it can depend upon a few things. How much is your total loan, right? If you're taking a $100,000 loan out and the other one's $50,000, that's definitely different. How much can you afford to pay each month, right? You should always try to keep your debt to income ratio fairly low because you never know what can happen, right? In the United States, I want to say it was something like 60% or 70% of the United States can't afford a shortfall of $500. So if something happens and it's $500, they can't afford it. That's the state of our society right now. How much extra do you intend to pay on your principal? How much will you pay on top of it? So let's look at an example here. Let's say you borrow $45,000 for that sweet new car or truck you've been wanting to buy, and you only intend on paying the amount your bank charges you per month. So it's 6 years at 3%. Monthly payments about $685. total amount that you will pay over that full loan is about $50,000, right? So the total interest paid over that loan, about $4,300. If you finance it for 3 years at 9%, right, your monthly payment would be about $1,400 a month. Total amount paid over the loan, $5,150 or $51,500. Total interest paid, that's $6,500. So even though the percentage is tripled, the shorter interest time and the shorter time does not allow the interest to build up as much. So you would think that at 9%, man, that's 3 times 3%. Yeah, but because it's a shorter period, you aren't able to compound that interest as much. With your student loans, typically have 2 different types of loans, and the rates are the rated and increasing interest rates most times. You have subsidized student loans. Right now, it's about 2.75% plus 1.5% origination fee. And the origination fee is the fee that they're going to charge you just for giving you the loan. So like if you have $1,000 loan, right, that you're taking out for this semester, they're going to charge you $15 on top of that $1,000 just to give you the loan, right? They got to make theirs somehow. On those subsidized loan, interest is subsidized by the federal government, meaning covered while you're in school or during special considerations after. There can be certain things like pandemic, we had some consideration for that as well. Unsubsidized loans, the interest is not subsidized and accrues while you're in school. You may not be required to pay it back. It will increase the principal the whole time you're in school. Then we have plus and student loans. These can be plus, parent plus, those type loans. These are usually 4.3 or greater. The highest I saw was, I think Money Tree has a student loan, and that one was 19.7% interest rate. These are loans that are not guaranteed by the federal government. They're often guaranteed by other financial institutions like the credit unions, banks, money lenders, stuff like that. Those loans usually have a much higher rate, but sometimes you have to pay them in order to cover such things as living expenses, especially if you're like in grad school. If you're in grad school, you're not going to be able to work as much as you would think. Even in this program, I'm going to say, you're not going to be able to work as much as you think you are. It'll come back and bite you eventually. Consolidation loans are often offered after you graduate and allow you to consolidate all of your loans. So let's say you have subsidized and unsubsidized and a plus loan. Sometimes you can combine all 3 of those loans into one consolidation loan, and you can end up with a lower interest rate overall, especially if your plus loans are a high interest rate. You just have to be really careful because there are predatory lenders out there. Whenever looking at anything at a student loan, please look at whatever financial charges they're going to give you. Look at anything they give you. Look at all that paperwork. If you have any questions, see our financial aid department. I'm telling you, the folks that we have in our financial aid department are top notch, and they understand if you're getting taken for a ride, they're going to tell you you're getting taken for a ride. The key thing to understand about your student loans is definitely do not take out more than you need. Right? You don't need to take it out so you can plan a family trip to Cabo on our week break. If you do that, you're going to end up taking out more money and end up paying more in the end, right? There's often a desire for students to take more loans out to buy a car, go on vacation, whatever. Don't do this. I'm speaking from experience. Don't do this. Remember that there's a good chance at least one or more of your clinical rotations will be long distance, which means you're going to incur more expenses. You may be able to help offset these expenses with student loan amounts, but you'll have to talk to financial aid about this because I'm not a financial aid specialist. Obviously, I'm just talking about the loan percentages and stuff. But definitely talk to your financial aid rep. They may be able to help provide you with some options while you're on your clinical rotations to offset the lack of income you're bringing in. Wow, that was it. It's so much faster to teach these lessons when I don't have you guys, simply because, I don't get a lot of questions, which I kind of dislike because I really like the back and forth with you guys more than anything. But so what did we learn today? Well, we learned percentages can come back to bite us, right? That's the main thing we learned. The other thing we learned is watch out for predatory lenders. Please, I highly recommend watching that show, that little clip. It's about I think it's about a 20-minute clip on Last Week Tonight about predatory lenders. If you have, if you're sensitive to more adult language or cursing, it does have some of that in there. So please be aware of that. I am not affiliated, nor do I earn any money or anything from linking you to that show. I just want to let you know that. It's just that it really does help open your eyes to how arbitrary our student loan, not student loan, but our credit ratings are. It's really surprising to me every time I see stuff like that, right? It's really funny to see what can raise your credit rate and what can't, right? Carrying some balance on your credit cards does tend to positively affect your credit rating, but so does paying off your credit cards. So you're like, wait, if I pay them off, I raise my credit rate a little bit. But if I keep money on them, I raise my credit limit a little bit or credit rating a little bit. This makes no sense, right? Be careful when getting credit cards, especially when you get credit cards that may have no, what do you call it? No maximum on them, saying that, you don't have, there's no amount that you actually are maxed out on there. For example, I have an MX Platinum card, and I've got theoretically, no total max on that card. So I could go buy a car with that card if I really wanted to. But man, that interest rate's going to come back and bite me. I only use that because of the bonuses I get on it and the credit points and all that fun stuff. And that's a whole nother topic we could go into hours on how to use credit cards to afford to pay for things. And it's really sad that we have to do that in today's day and age, right? It's kind of sad that, when you think about it, back in the day, the barter and trade system is what led to the credit system in the first place, right? So, I'm going to give you X percentage of my milk farm production, and you're going to give me corn to feed my cows. That's where it stemmed from way back when. It also stemmed from, serfs being given land by their landowners, saying, okay, you're going to have this land, but you have to till it for 40 years for me. And if you till it for 40 years for me, you get the land. Sounds like a good idea, but when life expectancy is only 33 years or something like that, you never make it to owning land anyway. One day I'm going to own that land, Susan. Right? So that's some things you have to think about. So pay attention is the main thing. On your grades, if you ever have a question about where am I at in the class, even if it's not my class, come see me. I can usually help give you an idea. The big thing you usually want to try to figure out come the end of the semester is, what do I need to get on my final in order to pass the class, right? That was a big thing for me. I kept detailed spreadsheets of all of my classes when I was in school. And those detailed spreadsheets, the job was, let me know what I need to finally get on my final in order to pass the class. Because what that would mean is, if I had 5 classes and 3 of the classes I needed 50% or less in those finals, but one of the classes I needed 80%, I wouldn't study for those other classes as much as I would study for that major class that I need a higher percentage in. And that's just kind of being an adult in school is the best way I can put it. I am willing to help you with whatever I can. What I really like is when students come to me and say, hey, Mr. McKeever, I think I need about an 85%. I was looking at some of the numbers here. Can you help me out and see if I'm about right in what I need on this final? That comes a lot better than, Mr. McKeever, figure out what I need to get on my final. Because I know that you're invested a little bit in it, right? Again, in PIMA, you need a 77 to pass. And does that mean that if you only get a 77, you're the worst person in the world? Absolutely not. I will tell you guys, in 5th semester, one of my favorite idioms is, do you know what they call a person that graduates last in med school? They call him doctor. So if they call him doctor, then even if you get a 77%, you can become a PTA. Just saying. So with that, I'm going to end today's lesson. I'm going to upload it. It should be uploaded within the next 15 minutes. I appreciate you guys. Hello from Virginia. And I will catch you guys. I think Monday is my next live class with you. So I will see you all then. Thanks. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed anatomy.